Welcome back again. You'll notice that we got Kyle along with us. What we decided to do just a few minutes ago was we're going to have 5 of these successfully serving time or serving time successfully videos. And so I knew that I would have 2 more sessions, one with Rodney Dane, another one with Daryl Brown. And I didn't want to have a session with just me, so Kyle and I decided we're going to go ahead and give you 5 more principles for serving time successfully here in session 3 of that. So we're going to get right to it with these principles. But Kyle, the next principle is this: success demands feedback. And of course, what we're saying there, in other words, if something is broke, identify it by regularly taking time to do an inventory of life. And then what we do is we admit what's broke and we put things in place to fix it. So a lot of people in the rooms will call this inventory. One of the things I noticed was when I read Genesis 1 and 2, many people wouldn't know this in the English context, but in Greek and Hebrew, what's said first and what's said last is infinitely more important than what's in the middle. So, for example, if you took a Messianic Jew, that means a Jew that believes in Jesus came the first time, and you said, there's 1,200 chapters in the Bible. Do you want the first 3 and the last 3, or would you like the middle 1,194? They wouldn't bite an eyelash. They'd say, I want the first 3, I want the last 3. Now, here's what's interesting about that. The Spirit of God showed me several years ago there were 7 verb categories that sum up everything God did. For example, waiting, communicating, organizing, executing was the 4th. The 5th was reflection or reflecting. And the 6th, just so you'll know, was giving, and the 7th was resting. And I believe everything that we're to do in life can be 1 or 2 of those verb categories come up under. But the 5th one, if you count that, was reflecting. And here's where you get that from in Genesis 1 and 2. God actually did something that wasn't good. People go, what? God didn't sin. He just did something that wasn't good. And here's why it wasn't good. Because he knew man would fall, meaning man would be sin-filled, sin nature, and man would mess up. And so he wanted to show that you can put something in place to take care of something that's messed up. And what he did when he looked around, he said, it is not good for man to be alone. Now, this was before man fell or sin entered the world. So that was God saying, it is not good for man to be alone. But it says, of course, he's looking around, and there's man, he's observing, and this isn't good for man to be alone. So God, what does he do? He brings Eve. And most of us heterosexual guys, if not all of us, are very grateful that he brought women into the world. I'd hate to think of the world without the other fairer sex. But anyhow, the point being that God looked around, saw something that wasn't good. He got rid of that situation and put something in its place. So reflecting, feedback, inventory. Pastor Kyle, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I still do a daily moral inventory, and that the list that I have of liability and assets that I look at, and I have to look at this daily, because if we don't, we'll run amok into thinking we've got that cleared up. And we always want to stay on top of our daily moral inventory. So as I'm looking at my defects of character, I don't try to fix all of them. I try to pick out just one for today, and I may work on that a week. It may take a month. It may take a few months to work on that one. And I'll just say I normally do 1 or 2 because they the ones that have a little bit to do with each other, and then I get input. So I try to tell others to do the same thing that I do. I go to God first. I seek Him. I let Him know, hey, look, you've revealed to me by your Holy Spirit that I have this to work on. And then I'll look at Scripture, and then I'll plug into mentors that I have. Other people in the church, or other friends that I have. I've got 3 guys that we go golfing together, and a lot of times things come out on the golf course, and I don't mean we're cussing, throwing clubs. I'm just talking about we have conversation. And a lot of times we'll identify with the same thing. A lot of us guys, or you girls, who go through the same thing. And if I'm not bendable and pliable, if I can't receive well, we talked about giving last time, and giving's a great thing, but we also have to be humble receivers, because how are other people going to be blessed if we don't receive? So when somebody's giving me something, some constructive criticism, some building up, I've got to receive that and apply that. And so, like, if I'm doing something wrong and one of my accountability partners, he pulls me up on it, Kyle, look, just saying that's an area you might want to look at. It's hard. It's hard. I think it's, I don't know what's harder, is either hold somebody else accountable or to receive accountability. But when I receive accountability, I have to apply it. Because if I don't apply what other people are bringing me or helping me, first of all, what I'm doing is I'm blocking off who God's using to put in my life. How can I think for 1 second that I can just go through life, that I know it all, that I'm just going to receive it all and do it all? God created us, just like you said, in relationship. So life is about a bunch of relationships. First, our relationship vertically with the Lord, and then horizontally with everybody else. And so I learn from other people. I learn from other people's mistakes. That's the best way to do it, so I don't make them. But then also people's experiences. There's no way that I would think that I could experience everything in life that there is to experience. But like Jeff here, he's been down some roads that I've never been. So I glean from him. I glean from people, great men in my life, like my 2 grandfathers and my dad. I gleaned a lot from them. Now that they're passed away, I glean from other mentors, other colleagues in the ministry, and really where I glean a lot is from you guys. Like, so in my reentry classes, every single week when I go in, somebody's, hey, Pastor Kyle, we got this. You can add this to your reentry. Or, hey, we found out that information. Remember that question that we had about getting Social Security cards? Or now the DMV, now they're not releasing us without an ID in North Carolina anymore. And that was a big problem. And they just implemented this. So I'm learning all kinds of things. It's not just about factual information that can kind of help us. Not just that. But gleaning from people how to work on my defects of character, how I can become a better man in society and a better man of God.
Yep, feedback works, and
yes,
Kyle being a golfer, he'll get a kick out of this. The last time, I think, since I saw you in filming session 1 to filming session 2, I played golf with some guys, but what I did was I took the clubs that I teed off with and I monitored and I gave them grades. Like, for example, if I hit a great 8-iron, it was in play, that's an A, if it was in the fairway. And it went the proper distance and all that stuff. And of course, what I found out was I don't use a driver. I don't have enough swing speed to make it work. So I used a 7-wood, and I'm gonna say 50% of the time it was an A or a B. That was good. Then 25% of the time it was a C or a D.
Ooh.
And then 25% of the time it was an F, a total disaster. Now, what I learned from that was this: there are certain holes that are wide open that I could take that driver, and if that 7-wood, if I topped it, not that big a deal, because I played from the women's tees. I call them the forwards tees. And the reason I do, I'm 66. I ain't got a great swing speed. The PGA says you should play tees that are 28 times whatever your longest drive is. And of course, my longest drive with a 7-wood is about 180 yards. So you go to about 28, I need to be on the women's tees. So anyhow, I'm teeing off from women's tees. So my par 5s are going to be short, that I can get to sometimes with 2 7-woods, and if I top one, it just dribbles off the tee on a wide open fairway. I can still get there in 2 more and make a par out of it. But what I'm going to do on those short par 4s is back off on the 7-wood and make sure I use that 8-iron, because guess what? That 8-iron is easier to hit, and I got an A on every hole that I used it on.
There you go.
So what will happen is the score will come down. What did I just do? I used feedback from my round to improve something, if you will. Many people, and most people I've ever played with, they go out there and they never do any feedback in golf, none whatsoever. And they wonder why they shoot the same score every week. And my score is coming down so much that I've got a guy who booms 300-yard drives, same age I am, 66 years old. 300-plus yard drives blows my mind for somebody 66 years old. But 3/4 of the time he's in the woods 300 yards.
Right.
So I'm hitting my second shot by him 100 yards past where his drive went 300 years. He's got to pull out, be hitting his third shot from, back 100 yards behind me. So I beat him on the hole. But my point being that he's not doing any feedback. I'm doing feedback, and he's just amazed. I can tell he's getting pissed off. I'm improving so quickly. I've improved a stroke a hole, which is impressive.
That's good.
Going
Stroke
from averaging from like 108 down to 90 in about 3 or 4 months, and I don't practice that much, and I don't play but about once a month. So the point being that this guy, I can tell he's getting frustrated. He's been my best friend, a great friend from kindergarten on. But the point being, feedback works in everything. Reflection.
Yep.
Look at what's not working. Put stuff in place that is. Get pointers from other people. Even in my golf game, I try to get pointers from other people. And over again, some of the best pointers that I get is keep your ball in play. If it goes 150 and you're in play, that's better than 300 down in the woods.
Yep.
And you'll hear that from all serious golfers if you're serious about wanting to lower your score, which the point of golf is, and this goes back to goals, the point of golf is not to hit 300-yard drives. The point of golf is to score as low as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I like beating the 300-yard driver because you got the guy who can boom it about twice as far as I can. I'm whooping his ass. Excuse my English, but I like doing that because it makes it fun. Oh, by the way, ass is in the King James Version of the Bible, so it's legal.
Yeah.
So that's the good one, though. Feedback, reflection, accountability partners, listening to people like Pastor Kyle's saying. But success demands feedback. Now, here's another principle. We talked about this one with Skeet. Lord have mercy. This was Skeet's big one, and you've heard us in session 1 talk about Skeet, so I won't go back into Skeet. He's with Jesus now. He would be like 90 or 100 years old now if he's alive. Yeah, but anyhow, Skeet stayed in prisons into his 80s. In other words, he kept going in, and Lord have mercy, that was a tough guy from Michigan. He was an old biker. I mean, he's been a small biker. Yeah.
Yep.
But he was a small biker, and so Skeet. But Skeet talked about this one a lot. A balanced life. And he used to talk about the 4-letter words. Work and play, work and rest. So Kyle, talk about a balanced life. Work and play and work and rest.
Yeah. You've got to balance your life. I hear a lot of guys when they'll, especially in the re-entry class, they'll hone in. Once they have their place of residence or where they're going, all they talk about is work. Where to get a job, where to make the most money. Making the most money, working a job, making the most money is not necessarily, back to God's plan, is not necessarily God's plan. I'll have people in my church, hey, Pastor Kyle, man, I got a great blessing. I got a raise and I got a position, a change. And then I sit back and I watch. And normally, if you get higher up the ladder, more money, you're going to expect more. There's going to be more stress, and you're probably going to become a fall guy or a fall gal. You're going to be the one that they're going to go after if anything happens. Supervisors are not easier. What the more we're called to, the more we're responsible for. So don't just jump out there and say, I'm all about money. I'm going to work. I'm going to work. Money will take care of everything. Actually, it doesn't. You have to have a balanced life. So you have work. As much work, you'll need to invest in play. Leisure. I always talk about leisure. Find a new hobby. Most of us, when we go into incarceration, we don't have good hobbies. If we had any at all, they're probably not good. But you have the good in you because God has given us gifts and talents. So you may be a young lady listening to us from a female prison, and you might have been into crafts, sewing, something that maybe your grandmother did, that your mom did, maybe cooking, it may be weaving. There's all kinds of things, guys. You might have grew up with a grandfather or father that loved to fish, but you really didn't do much fishing while you was out there running the streets or being a hustler. So find that hobby. Me and Jeff, we both have the hobby, same hobby of golf, but not just that, trail walking, auctions, sales, stuff like that. So I balance that leisure time with my work time, with my devotion time, my quiet time. I need time for rest. And that doesn't come easy for me. I'm always a guy that wants to be on the go all the time. I always want to be doing something. And I found that the later in life that I get, not that I'm slowing down, but how important that was. And if I would have taken the time to rest, taken the time of quiet time, meditation, prayer, I would never went down some of the paths that I went. So we got to have a balanced life. We've got to equal it out. I know that in America, our shifts of work are longer. Some of you may be working 8-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts. But thank the Lord that our government does put staples on it, that if you work a certain amount of hours, you get so much break. And if you're working a 12-hour shifts, you're only going to work 3 or 4 a week. You're not going to work a 7-day, 12-hour shifts. And be smart about that too. A lot of employers will want to use you because you're going to come out, you're going to be a great employee, you're going to want to try to prove yourself, you're going to want to work to be the best employee that you can. Being the best employee doesn't mean saying yes to every hour that they want to work you. So be very, very careful. Protect yourself. Understand that this is your body, this is your soul. You only get one of them. So protect yourself. Take a good pace. Do well, but doing well doesn't mean working yourself to death. And so have balance in your life.
Yep. And then let me tell you a little funny story about wanting to climb to the top of the totem pole. In other words, be the head honcho, be the boss, and all that kind of stuff. It's a story of birds. Imagine, if you will, there is 4 telephone pole wires between 2 telephone poles. There's a top one, second one down, third one down, fourth one down. And on the top one is 1 bird. On the second line down is 2 birds. On the third line down is 3 birds. And on the fourth line, or bottom line, there's 4 birds. And this is a picture of work. This is a picture of Crossroads. This is a picture of a business, a factory, a church. It doesn't matter. But the point is that the top bird, he's the head honcho. And then the bottom 4, they're allegedly the lowest on the ladder, the lowest on the totem pole. But here's what's funny about it. If you're at the top, you look down and all you see is bird feces. You see feces everywhere, all right? If you're on one of the lower ones and you look up, all you see is anuses. The point is, it doesn't matter where you are on the totem pole or on the lines, the power lines, there's problems. Yeah. And that's just humanity. And so, for example, Kyle knows this by being a pastor. I know it as being a leader of Crossroads Reentry. 20% of your people are going to cause 80% of your problems. Yeah. And that's the old 20-80 rules. The other side is 20% of your people are going to get 80% of your work done.
Yeah. Yep.
And that being said, then I'm just leaving that out there. But the point being, work and play needs to be balanced. Yeah. Work and rest needs to be balanced. Don't get the idea that more money is going to be your nirvana. Don't get the idea that moving up to the top is going to be your nirvana. No, your nirvana is going to be where you find true joy. That's going to be your nirvana, where you find true joy.
Life's no fun if you're wore out.
That's right. Yeah. And so rest and work, and then rest and play. Here's another thing I caution people on, and even Pastor Kyle, but I believe Pastor Kyle's got this down. We live in Charlotte area, metro area, and what I mean by that, Kyle's about an hour and 15 minutes away, that kind of thing, and I'm a 20-minute drive from downtown Charlotte, non-rush hour. But the point being that I've been here in this area my whole life, roughly, 7th decade of living here. I'm 66 now. But I have seen in the last several decades multiple pastors. Now, here's what's interesting about this. We have more mega church preachers here that make it to the top from the Charlotte area than any other place, with the possible exception of Dallas and Houston, Texas area, Texas. For example, Billy Graham, Charlotte, North Carolina area. Another one was Jim Baker, if you remember him from the 80s and 90s, who, by the way, my uncle, my wife's, he's passed on now, was cellmates with Jim Baker, cleaning bathrooms in federal prison here in Butner, North Carolina, and doing it when Jim Baker was serving his federal time 40 hours a week. Wow. And so Jim Baker, when he got out of prison, used to call my uncle while I'd be going and celebrating dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, and Sonny would get off the phone and go, well, that was Jim Baker wishing me a happy Thanksgiving. I'm sitting there thinking, wow. And down here we called him, even when I was not saved, I was a heathen, we called it Pass the Loot. Instead of PTL, we called it Pass the Loot. In other words, Jim Baker. And then, of course, recently you've got many other megachurch preachers, but here's where I'm going with it. Over the last 3 decades, in the 40s and 50s age-wise, every mega church preacher in Charlotte burnt out, and it led to mental health disorders of clinical depression, clinical anxiety, clinical panic attacks, bipolar, and I forget what the 5th one is, but one or more of those if you follow out. And why did it do it? They had on their chest SP. Instead of Superman with a big S on there, they had SP, Super Pastor. They didn't take time to rest. They didn't take time to play. They thought they were the only ones that could get the work done, and every single one of them burned out. And so I sort of learned from that from Crossroads, and I know Kyle does too. Both of us take a Sabbath, that kind of thing. That's our rest day, and it's very important for us to do that, and we get away from things, and our normal duties is what you get away from if you take a 24-hour Sabbath like we do, your normal duties. Mine are 2 things, running Crossroads, and then secondly, I have to do finances because I don't get paid anything from Crossroads. I don't take any money being the leader of that. But the point being that you need the rest, you need the playtime, and the ones that do that don't burn out.
Right.
And and I would play on exactly what Kyle talks about is, in 4 decades of doing this with inmates, the mentality in general, there's some rare exceptions, but the mentality is I'm going to get out there and work my ass off and make a whole bunch of money. The sad part of everybody I've ever seen that works their ass off is they don't have a life.
Yep. They don't.
So they don't have a life. So work and play, work and rest, as Skeet said, they're good 4-letter words if they're balanced properly.
They are.
But if they're not, if it's all work, that's a worse cuss word of any of the 4-letter words. Just tell somebody you want to cuss them bad, say work all the time. Work all the time. Ask the Israelites in Egypt how working all the time worked out. Not fun. All right, now we got another one here. 3rd principle of today here in session 3. So this one, 3, by the way, is the number of the Trinity. So this is evidently a special principle from the Trinity, if you will. Now, let's imagine you're a pilot of a 737. 737 is the most common jet flown around the world. It typically has anywhere flying in it from 90 passengers, sometimes up to maybe 150, 160 with some of the modern ones. But it's called the workhorse of the jets throughout all airports across the world, all New World airports. I'm sure some 3rd world airports don't have any 737s, but the point being that if you were a pilot in a 737, you're the head pilot. Many people don't know this. Typically in 737, you got a primary pilot, you got a backup pilot. But let's say you're the primary pilot. You're in the left seat. That's where the primary pilot usually sits, is the left seat, they call it. You're in charge of the whole plane. Now imagine this, if you will. All of a sudden, at the same time, you have 2 people who are flying in your airplane in the back. 2 passengers come up, they're knocking on the cabin door, bam, 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 bam. You realize they're not trying to attack, but they've got emergencies, both of them do. One of them says the toilet is stopped up, and the other one says the left engine's on fire. Now, which are you going to focus on first? Now, that's a no-brainer. Everybody should say left engine. Why? It don't matter about that toilet stinking, but if that left engine stays on fire, the whole plane's going to get on fire. If the whole plane gets on fire, we're going to crash. If we crash, everybody's going to die.
Yep, that's right.
So this is a word about priorities. And I think one of Satan's greatest strategies is to get people tangled up on the wrong priority. I'll give you an example. One of the places I think it works biggest at is Christians in churches. And the priority, number 1, ought to be to get the gospel out. Yet, Satan will deceive them to, here's a program. We're going to do a financial program where we're going to learn what the Bible says about finances. But in the meantime, we're not sending our people out. we're not encouraging our people to go out and win people for Christ to share the gospel with them. Well, that would be working on the damn toilet instead of going out and taking care of that fire that's on the left engine. Many people don't know the 737 pilot has several stages that he can do to put a fire out in his engine. The first of which is they each have a fire extinguisher in the engine. And all he's got to do is mash one button in that cabin, and that fire extinguisher first one blasts off inside that engine, and most time will put it out. He's got a second fire extinguisher that's in that engine, different location. It blasts a second time if he needs it, puts that fire out. Then he's got third plan, fourth plan, if you can follow what I'm getting at. But the point being is we don't want to do working on the stop the toilet when we got an engine on fire. Speak to that one.
Yeah, I like that last part about the engine. You want multiple plans, and not multiple plans like different directions, but you do want plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, and so on and so forth. And always, this is an easy one. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. So if I made the choice to where, okay, I'm leaving prison, I'm not going to go back to my old playground. I'm going to go to a transitional house where I can get rooted even deeper than what I am. And so I'll put up, well, I'm going to go to Oxford House, or I'll put all my eggs in that basket. Well, if it doesn't work out, I should have had maybe Sober Living of America down. I could have had, another transitional house down there, New Beginnings or First Steps, First at Blue Ridge. And if I put all those in, two things are going to happen. One, I'm giving God something to work with. Transitional house was the message from the Lord that I needed to do, but I didn't know the exact place. So when the first one don't work out, I just start going to throw my hands up. I'm like, no, God might not have wanted me to go there, but He wanted me. But it's still within the transitional house. The job. Let's say I work in culinary. Well, I'm not going to go out working construction. I'm going to have multiple things in culinary to maybe set me up. So having priorities, and I know we're talking about, I just talked about practical things like jobs and a place to stay, but priorities in my life, I've got to line it up. God first, others second, I'm third. In that, also, my day, my first thing in the morning, I have a quiet time. And I started out with half an hour, 45 minutes. I've expanded to 2.5 hours. And really, I say 2.5 hours, but that gives me a half an hour buffer because I at least want 2 solid hours alone with the Lord, doing my daily moral inventory, reading His Word, and having a good message to go out the house. The last thing I want to do is to go out the door of my house into the world without having my daily bread, without having a strength builder. And then what's my next step? My next step is to go to the office or go to my work. I might, one of the first things I need to do is check emails because I might have one from the district superintendent or somebody in the church. Also check the messages on my phone. And then whatever I rake in priority throughout my day. And then, as we just talked about with leisure, a family. I need to have my family time. Where's my priorities? Work can't be first. My family has to have a slot. My leisure has to have a slot. So when I prioritize my life, we plan it out correctly, and then we stick to the plan. We don't just chunk it when the next thing that happens. We stick with the plan. Now, God may bring in a divine appointment, may bring in an opportunity. I'm always getting phone calls during the day from maybe somebody who was released from prison or somebody who's sick and in the hospital from my church, or maybe a family situation. I got a couple birthdays coming up this weekend in the family that I need to tend to. So what I do is I back off the priorities, where a priority one day might be my work's going to have to come first if I want to get my sermon done. But the next day it's, no, I'm going to back off the meetings because I need to concentrate on my family and edify them. So making sure that my priorities are set. I also have a calendar. I just don't set my priorities one day at a time. I have a calendar. I have an outlook. Now, the Lord said, don't worry about tomorrow. Right. Tomorrow will take it by itself. But I have a planner, and I have plenty of room that God can make moves. Right. But now I have a course of action that I plan out by the month, then the week, then the day. And when I set goals in life, I might have a 3-year vision broken down what I want to complete in the first year and the second year. And then the first year, I break it down into quarters. So what do I want to accomplish in 3 months, the next 3 months. And then I take the first quarter, those 3 months, and I back it down to bi-monthly. 1, 2, what am I going to hit in the first 3 months? Then I take 1 month, break it down weekly, and then take the week, break it down daily. Now, if we do that, we're going to set a good course as long as we know that God can move in at any point and give him room to breathe.
Right.
One more thing, when I was a young pastor and I was only a couple years out of prison, I think 3 years out of prison, and my 3 years in Arabia, and then I went off and I had my schedule set to do this, and I had it stacked. And there was no room
Exactly.
between the things that I had. I had it all stacked because I wanted to get the most accomplished. And I really think that was prideful. I wanted to get the most accomplished so I could get the old attaboys from the senior pastor. I was an associate pastor at the time. And then I found out that I was making more of a mess because I didn't have room to breathe. I had barely had room to get from one meeting to the next. And the last thing you want to do, is, especially as a pastor, really as anybody, is to give your word and then to break it, or give your word and not to show up on time. Be prompt. Well, I backed up and I gave myself 30 minutes between each meeting. And now sometimes I'll even do an hour. That way, if one, you never know what the Holy Spirit will do. One may last a little longer, and then one, I may get there a little early, just so I'm not late. So give more room in your life, but set priorities, stay to the schedule, and the only one that gets to really interrupt that schedule outside of a blatant emergency is the Lord.
That's right. Exactly. Good stuff there. And the way to think about it, I think, is have you a plate. We've seen these plastic plates, prison sometimes, cafeterias. Just imagine a plate, if you will, that's got the sides on, or the side that comes up an inch or two, and then it has those. It's quartered. And the way to think about it is my experience has been, don't put any more than 3/4 full, because that gives you a quarter for what comes up during the day. So I'm going to say an average of quarter stuff. For example, this one just came up that me and Kyle decided to do a 3rd session for Kyle. So this one came up today. He said, hey, man, you want to do another session? I thought about it. I said, well, heck, why not? And this would be one of those quarters, or some of the space on the quarter on that plate that we do. And the way you got to do that is the pruning principle. What do you mean by pruning? Anybody that knows gardening, knows horticulture, knows that you prune things before they grow and expand. You don't wait and try to let them grow and expand by themselves. They won't grow as much as if you prune them.
Right.
And so by pruning, it means I need, for example, many things in my life to prune off something and give it to somebody else to take care of. Then we can expand. My assistant, I'm blessed to have one by the name of Paula. Lord have mercy. What a blessing she's been. And I keep expanding stuff by giving it off to her. But before I give it to her, I get her to carve off something and give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to pile it on her and make her more busy. But I say, Paula, you need to get rid of this, give it to this person, because I'm getting ready to give you this.
Yeah.
So let's carve off 3 hours of time per week to do this and give it to so-and-so. And I'm going to carve off blah, 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 and give it to you. What will that give me 3 hours to do to expand Crossroads? For example, expanding Crossroads, successfully serving time series, is an expansion. So, so good stuff there, Kyle. Yep. So let's see what the next principle is. That one was a balanced life. Here's the next one, the pilot 737 we just did. Wise folks on the outside who give second chances to those who are coming out. Now, what does that mean? Many inmates, once they're released, strongly suggest tap in and go look at our videos for A Job and D Job. You're going to see some powerful stuff there that's worked on the street for thousands of released felons to get jobs quickly. And it's the way to think about it is it's a gazillion people's wisdom put together in a 5 series sessions, 50 minutes long, A Job and D Job, and look into that. And the reason being is when you look at that, you will see that as you're looking for a job, many people in the past have been turned down and heard no. All right. Let me tell you something. Being told no is actually a blessing.
Yep.
And why would that be a blessing? Here's why it's a blessing. If you or I are a felon, Kyle's a felon, and we go try to apply at a place and we happen to run into somebody that doesn't believe in giving second chances, so they turn us down because we're a felon, guess what? I wouldn't want to work there if
Nope.
people don't give second chance.
No way.
In my organization, Crossroads Reentry, if all of us got fired every time we missed something or did something wrong, I wouldn't even be there. None of us would.
Nope.
We all make mistakes. We all miss the mark periodically. We all drop the ball periodically. And we want to work for somebody who gives second chances. And so, but here's what's wise about people who give second chances that wise people do. They don't give second chances till there's evidence that somebody changed from what was there previously. I'm going to say that again. Wise people don't give second chances until there's evidence that somebody's put something in place that ain't going to stay in the same problem they were at before.
Yep.
All right. And what do you mean by that, Cloud? Well, take somebody who's been in prison, and if I'm getting ready to consider hiring them when they first get out, you might come in for an interview and I'd sit there and say, okay, tell me what you did while you were in prison to improve yourself. If you go, I'm not hiring you. You didn't do anything to change.
Nope.
But if you say things like what Kyle was talking about, if I'd have hired Kyle, knew Kyle when he first came out, I'd hired him in a minute, because Kyle would be telling me all the things he did to change his life on the inside, number one. Number two, he made a personal choice to go to TROSA, which is the name of his 2-year transitional program that he went to that actually paid his scholarship, as you heard.
Yep.
And so when you see that, what you see is this person put a ton of stuff in place to not be the old person who got locked up.
Yep.
And incarcerated.
Yep.
And convicted of the crime or whatever it is. And so you want people give second chances. So talk to that, Kyle, a little bit. Second chances, the wisdom of people that are going to look at things that you've done in the past and make sure you change.
People that give second chances have had grace poured into their life. I want to work with graceful people. Also, that shows me, it tells me, I may not know their story, but it tells me that they made mistakes in their life and somebody's given them a second chance. That takes off a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety on me, or to make, for the thought that I have to make sure I get everything done right and perfect. Not that I'm trying to mess up, but it just takes the edge off. And when you go, that brings confidence, actually. When you go into a job and you know that that they're going to have grace for you, meaning that I'm not going to mess up, but it makes me want to do a better job for somebody like that. And then also, to take a little snippet out of the job, we talked to guys about owning their own business. And when I start talking about that, most of the time, before I even get to my big punchline, my climax of what I want to talk to them about owning your own business, is to hire others in the same situation. They're already coming, oh man, if I have a company or if I have a business, I'm going to hire guys that are coming straight out of prison too, because I want to give back. Okay. We all want to give back. With the guys and gals that have more grace in their life are more apt to wanting to give back than those who don't. There again, second chance people. So we have a local, so I won't say their names because you may be out in California looking at this, but there are some local companies that guys have gotten out of prison that, and I know one particularly, it's an industrial sawmill. They take rough sawn logs and stuff like that. He hires ex-felons or felons getting out of incarceration first. That's the first guys. So if he needs, let's say 2 more workers, and he has 2 guys applying at the same time, but one just got out of prison, he's going to hire them first. And other guys that I met, lawn care business, construction business. Talking to one guy when he got, it was just a suggestion in the job about owning your own business. I said, you can find an old drum, an old barrel, and cut it in half and hinge it, find an axle, build a trailer, and you can have your own barbecue cooker. He was in my first ever alone when you and I was still with Skeet in the first reentry class. That suggestion came out of nowhere, right, Heaven? And I suggested that, and he got out. Wow. His first name's William, and he lives in Kings Mountain. And now he literally does that.
Oh, wow.
And he'll go to churches and just do fundraisers. He'll come. We have him every year come to our church. He just loves helping out with fundraisers, and so he'll give his time and stuff. Now we pay for his gas and stuff like that, but he has helped other guys getting out work with him, give them a few extra dollars till they get on their feet, and so that's what it'll make out of you.
Well, now you guys probably like me. You smell pork right now. If you're in Texas, hey, North Carolina's got better pork than you do.
Yeah, or Kansas City, we could probably have a fight.
Yeah. The point being, if you're down in Texas, we got better pork than you do. Hey, by the way, Texas, since I'm gonna put a little plug in for y'all are one of the bigger states, and I think that of the 4 biggest states that we currently didn't go into because of reentry was Texas, simply because Texas state prison system doesn't let us know when you guys are getting ready to get out. But there's been so many people reach out to us from Texas. We do have home plans now in Houston, Dallas, and Austin.
Awesome.
So if you write for those, then we could get you a home plan for those that need it. But I'm just throwing that out there. So if you know any guys down there that do it, so we'll make up for down in Texas with y'all's pork, because that may be, once he started talking about the man cooking pork, I'm telling you what, smell it.
Yeah.
I'm mostly a raw vegan now, but every now and then I'll eat a little plate of pork. And buddy, when I do, I pay.
Yeah, he's struggling because it's right before lunch. Our time right now. Yeah.
Yep. So, but that's the wise folks that on the outside who give second chances and what to think about them, how you can tap into them. Just realize wise people are going to make sure you got something in place that changed before. For example, if we knew somebody crashed airplanes all the time, they happen to live through it, but people get hurt on airplanes, and nobody had ever died, you wouldn't jump in an airplane with them if they never done anything to change their flying habits. You know? So the point being that you got to think along those lines. Now here's the final principle we're going to do in the last several minutes here that we've got. But take advantage of any betterment programs your facility may have.
Yes.
Now here's some of the examples of them. Some prisons have reentry classes, some don't. Some have Bible studies, some don't. Some have church services, some don't. Some have Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, some don't. Some have Narcotics Anonymous meetings, some don't. Some have Celebrate Recovery meetings, some don't. Some have vocational training, some don't. Some have substance abuse programs, some don't. Some have GED classes. For example, Mecklenburg County Jail, I'm going to say we were down there teaching approximately 2012, so we're talking 15 years ago. They started doing GED. Back then, they had 16, 17-year-olds locked up with the adults. It wasn't a pretty situation, but anyhow, what they did in a lot of cases was the 16, 17-year-olds were having such trouble in school, getting kicked out and blah, 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 that many of them might have only a 7th grade education. They started doing GED on the inside. And let me share this with you, that having a high school education is a requirement for probably at least 80% of the jobs out there.
Found out.
So the bottom line is, if you got GED, go towards it. And then there's other classes as well too, and things that you can do. But we call them betterment programs, whatever they are. What I mean by that is they are going to better somebody's life. It may not be 3 principles you get out of that. It may not be good with your hands. You go to take a welding class, but the 3 principles you'll get, I guarantee you, they're going to teach you how to read plans. Planning is important. They're going to go build this high-rise. Imagine a high-rise, 100-story building in Charlotte. By the way, many people don't know this about Charlotte, North Carolina. The foundation of rock, 100, 200 feet down below Charlotte, makes it the only place in the world where a skyscraper over a mile could be built. Why? Because steel, once you get to a certain point on itself, you wouldn't have anything down at the bottom. So about 1 mile is the most you could do, and you'd only have just very little channels like elevators coming up through a whole floor, if you will, on the lower floor of a steel facility like that. But they could go 1 mile with the foundation. Now, if you went and took a welding class, you would learn from that plans are there. Imagine, if you will, building a 1 mile high skyscraper in the future sometime with no plans. If I wanted the definition of chaos, I would, and I had a gazillion dollars, money wasn't an issue, I would sit there and say, okay, let's build a 1 mile high skyscraper and let everybody just go out there and do what they want to. it wouldn't get built in 100 years. And it'd be fun to watch. I'd put Candid Camera out there, and many people don't know what Candid Camera is. It was a show from a gazillion years ago where they put cameras and people didn't know the cameras were there and watched funny stuff. But you thought something would be funny, and it would be because somebody didn't know plans. But if somebody that may not even use welding would get the point of, by taking a betterment class, that planning is very important. They would learn about plans, how to read plans, how to do fillet welding, and blah, 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 et cetera, so on and so forth. So Kyle, take that as far as betterment programs, because I know you took a lot of betterment programs when you were incarcerated. Tell us about some of
And
that.
it lines up with your priorities. You just made the statement. Without a GED, there's only about 20% of the jobs, you know, and plus your rate of pay is going to be
Exactly.
lower. They're not going to pay you. You're probably going to get pushed around. You're going to get the worst jobs, the low man on the totem pole, and you probably never move up the ladder, especially if you can't. You don't have a good vocabulary. You can't spell. You can't write. So that would be my priority. If I don't have my high school diploma, get my GED.
Yeah.
Then the next one, and can you go to college without a diploma or a GED?
I don't think most colleges
No.
will take you for the normal situation.
Right. So you might be able to with maybe a 6 month or 9 month, you know, a certification
Correct,
type
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But yeah, so so I get my GED, and now as I'm studying, I feel good about this, and man, I want to keep going.
That's right.
Because then it reproduces. So now we're taking college courses, but there's a whole gamut of college courses that you all can take,
That's
but
right.
you can't get there unless you have a GED. So set my priority. That's what I want. I want to get that in there first.
Yeah.
So let's say your camp doesn't have a GED. So at Lincoln Correctional, they didn't have GED. They had it at Foothills and other ones. Well, now they've moved all the GED down to Lincoln, and as well as work release. But then they take the ACDP, the drug and alcohol. They've taken those classes to Foothills, and so they moved them around. So let's say one of these things that you want to take is not in your camp. Well, apply. See your programs officer. See, and to those that can make your transition easy to get to the place to where you can get to your next step. They're moving people around anyway. I mean, I know everybody wants to kind of stay where they are. They don't want to move. But these kinds of moves can really propel you to the next level. You talk about other betterment programs. Betterment can come in a discipleship course like Yoke Fellow, a Bible study. They may come. Betterment absolutely is in AA. Everybody needs to work a 12-step program. So maybe AA comes in, NA comes in. I had a really hard time my first two stints because I didn't do anything. I just said, well, I don't have that much time, and that might have been my problem. I didn't get a whole lot of time. My first stint was 4 years, but I didn't have to do the whole 4 years. It was knocked down to 2 as soon as I walked in the door. And so I just, you know, I was young. I didn't set priorities. And so I did nothing with my life. I thought I had enough in my life right now to do what I want. Well, I'm not opening myself up to further my education and knowing more. Got one guy in my reentry class right now. He came in, I think construction was his background, and he has taken absolutely any class anywhere. And he's been prisons in 2 states that coincide, from Texas to North Carolina. He had double charges. He's been in almost 20 years. And so when we were doing the resume part of our reentry, he already showed me. I already got mine done, Pastor Colin. He was showing me, and he'd had it written well. And he had so many different certifications and degrees that he had gotten while he was in prison. That's what you want. You want to be versatile. Plus, the more you learn, the more it just expands your knowledge. I got one young lady, her mom actually is in our church. She's come a few times, and we go on their property and bless their trailer park. Anyways, her mom came in, and the daughter got busted. She relapsed, and she was out. And she had gotten caught with, I think it was 139 grams of meth, and they were on a big buy and going to deliver, and so she was facing some big time years. The first amount of years was 17 to 24. They dropped it. Looked like it was going to be 8 to 12. Now she has learned that she's going to do 6 to 8 years, and so a lot of grace there. But I told her, I said, well, next time you talk to your daughter, let her know to make sure that she doesn't waste her time in there. to go take extra classes. She's a bright young lady and she's a young adult, and she's very, very bright. Expand it in school, get as many degrees as she can. Her mom's reply to me was this. This is somebody on the outside that has a lot of pull in her life. She said to me this. She says, well, she's already got her, was it cosmetology? She's already got her beauty school. She's already got her license to cut hair. That's a good job in prison. But is that all you got? And is that the lifestyle that you want to go back to? And was that the type of job that brought the clientele that was part of her downfall? And if all you have is a cosmetology, but you have a brain to get a 4-year degree or maybe your master's degree, why would you hold back? So I inspired her mom to let her know, hey, look towards another degree, because her mom is her #1 voice in her life. So I may not be talking to her daughter, but her mom can. So always look at that next. And the prisons, especially today, have more and more programs that you can get in. Take the next class.
Yeah.
You know, most of our class is only 9 weeks. Game Plan for Life is 10 weeks. Take these things. These are really inspiring. You never know what God's wanting to do, but He can speak through some of these classes or some of these betterment programs.
Yep, there's very good stuff Kyle's sharing there. And of course, we're going to end here with Kyle. We thank Kyle for joining us, but I want to share with you guys and ladies that when you have these tablets, I know now there's over 1,000 different courses and classes.
Yes.
Make sure you remember our name when you're searching for us, Crossroads Reentry, to see some of these other things in successful serving time, because the principles that are in A Job and the Job, the principles that are in housing, all of these kind of things, you're going to glean some big time principles out there that can help you no matter where you are.
Yep.
And then secondly, though, we're not the only show in town. You've got plenty of other stuff there. And as a person who does more searching on the internet than anybody I know of, and you say, why would that be, Cloud? All of these home plans, all of these resource lists, essentially all the resource lists, I'm the one who's done it. I had to search these places out, had to find things. I know what I'm doing on internet searches beyond what anybody I've ever seen does. But just remember, keywords are the way to go with your search. For example, if you're looking for GED classes on your tablet right now, GED, and I'd probably put them in caps, GED. Why? That's the way it usually is. But you'll see any GED classes that could come up there that you may already have in your facility that are on tablet. Bible study, type in that. Think, and you don't have to limit it to just one. For example, if I was trying to look for Bible studies, I might put Bible study, do a search. I might do Christian, do a search. I might put church, do a search. You get the picture. Just think of all the words that you can to find a church. And I do know that on Adovo, they've got more than 1,000 different of these type of things. We have Crossroads in 2026, later in the spring, are going to be up to only 15 of our things are going to be on there. So my suspicions are we're going to be 1% of what's out there. But down the line, we very well may be. And by the way, if you want to write us and give us ideas of things that we could do that are even beyond the reentry norms, then feel free to write us. And usually if a couple come in from different sources, I sit there and go, God may be speaking here. And what my experience has been, when you get somebody like Kyle, you get somebody like my assistant Paula, and their schedules can be carved off by giving people to do stuff that they can carve off. Their schedule opens up. You can put more people with them. For example, Kyle's still teaching, but one day, Lord willing, I very well see that Kyle may, now I say may because this isn't a prophetic word. I wouldn't bet my life on this, but I do believe down the line you'll see Kyle be teaching teachers on how to teach. I'm getting ready to do that within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I got 2 that are getting ready to teach up at Alexander Correctional. I'll bring them in for a 2 or 3 hour session. I think it's 2 hours where I teach them how to teach. And it's very important. For example, just one thing on teaching how to teach, and Kyle knows this from preaching. When you first start teaching or you first start preaching, you think I only need to tell the people something once. Why? Because they've heard it once, and if I tell it again, they're going to think they're done. But the truth of the matter is, probably the world's great preaching teacher, Haddon Robinson, wrote a book, and all the seminaries looked to him for their preaching teaching. And Haddon Robinson put in there, what's the point? And here was the point of his point in that book. You keep banging the point. For example, we've used one principle, more blessed to give than to receive. You can say that a million different ways. I find more joy when I try to be a giver than a getter. Same thing. You keep banging the point. Why? But when the person leaves and goes to lunch, what was the sermon about? Man, it was about giving. All right, point blank. If somebody sits there and hits 2,000 different ideas and somebody says, what was the sermon about? Man, I'm not really sure.
Yep. Repetition.
But this is what I got out of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you'd have 100 different people give you 100 different answers. But the point being that those are the kind of things that are there. So thanks to Kyle for joining us. We're going to move on here. And the next one should be Rodney Dane. And then we should have Daryl Brown after that. Total of 5 sessions. So Kyle, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Love you, brother.
Love you.
Agapeo. Blessings to y'all.
God bless y'all.